Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Melissa was tired of hearing the same so-called compliments from her own mother. You deserve more, Andrew is nice, but something's missing, one day you'll see you could have gone further. Outwardly she smiled and pretended to be patient, yet inside it ate at her bit by bit. When Donna showed up excited and proposed a trip to Palm Beach, Melissa was suspicious. She asked where that sudden enthusiasm, and especially the money to pay for everything, came from. Donna answered with a cryptic smile, I closed a great sale this week. I just want to celebrate with my daughter. The excuse felt too convenient, but Melissa let it slide. Maybe she was tired of trying to keep everything balanced. Maybe she quietly wanted to feel special again. Andrew, always calm, encouraged the trip. He said she deserved time with her mom, kissed her forehead goodbye, and promised to count the days until she came back. On the second day Donna suggested dinner at a nearby restaurant. She said it would be a relaxed outing, perfect for catching up with no rush and no obligations. Melissa agreed without suspecting a thing. She put on a light dress, tied up her hair, and went downstairs with a small smile. Only when she reached the restaurant did she notice a third chair at the table. Brandon McAllister. She recognized him instantly. She knew exactly who he was, and she also knew he had always been Donna's ideal match for her. Since their teens her mother had dreamed of seeing them together. Brandon stood to greet her with the confidence of someone who already felt part of the story. Donna, acting casual, said they'd bumped into him at the hotel and thought dinner together sounded great. But Melissa saw it clearly, the whole thing had been set up from the start, and she was the last to know. As she sat down, Melissa forced a smile, but inside she was connecting the dots. The great sale Donna had mentioned now sounded like a flimsy excuse. One look at Brandon, so comfortable, so invested in the act, was enough for the silent conclusion to click, he had paid for the trip. That explained everything. Dinner dragged on longer than it should have. Brandon was a smooth talker, telling stories with perfect timing, knowing when to pause, when to flatter. Donna fueled every exchange, finishing sentences, laughing before the punch line, nudging her daughter with discreet glances and comments that mixed charm with judgment. Melissa tried to keep her guard up, yet felt it slipping. There was something dangerous in the air, a blend of praise, desire, and validation she hadn't felt in ages. Brandon was handsome, confident, and seemed to know exactly what to say. Donna excused herself before dessert, claiming she was tired. In that instant Melissa realized she was alone with Brandon because her mother wanted it that way. He ordered another glass of wine. He said she deserved more admiration, asked how someone like her could stand such an ordinary life. His voice was calm, his words sharp. Melissa tried to change the subject, but it was too late. Something inside her wavered. When he leaned closer, she didn't pull back. When he touched her hand, she didn't move it. When he kissed her, she closed her eyes. And when she woke up the next morning, still in his suite, guilt hadn't woken up yet. She slipped out before breakfast. She walked to the room she shared with her mother and entered quietly. Donna was already awake, sitting on the balcony as if she knew exactly what had happened. She only asked, "Sleep well?" Melissa nodded and headed straight to the bathroom. She sat on the edge of the tub and stared at the floor for a long time. Images of Andrew surfaced, the way he held her hand when they walked down the street, the simple chats on the couch, the care in daily details. All that felt distant now. There was no fight, no argument, no crisis. Just a void she had created herself. What she didn't know was that an old friend of Andrew's was staying on the same floor, in Palm Beach for a business conference. He'd seen Melissa step into the elevator with Brandon, watched the lingering hug in the lobby and the quick kiss in the hallway. He knew it was wrong to meddle, but he also knew what that picture would do to Andrew. He took one photo, no zoom, no flash, just enough to capture the moment, and sent it to Andrew with a short text, "Sorry to send this, but I thought you should know." While Melissa showered, trying to wash away the taste of the night before, Andrew's phone buzzed in another time zone. He saw the image, read the message, and said nothing. He recognized Brandon immediately. He knew exactly who he was, the mother-in-law's favorite, the name that popped up in veiled jokes and not-so-subtle comparisons, the real man who knows how to treat a wife. Donna had never hidden her preference, even smiling she made it clear she thought Andrew was too small for her daughter. He got up, poured coffee, sat at the table, and stared at the silence. There was nothing to confront. The truth was right there, with no room for doubt. Long ago he'd decided he would never beg anyone to stay. He'd been man enough to love with everything he had. Now he'd be man enough to let go. Melissa still had a few days left on the trip. When she got back, she would find more than packed bags or angry arguments. She would find absence. His absence. The absence of the future she threw away in one night, wrapped in smiles that were never really hers. Melissa came home from Palm Beach with the same suitcase, but her mind was completely different. The silence on the flight back was heavier than on the way out. Beside her, Donna wore a victorious look, convinced she'd done the right thing, certain her carefully laid plan was working and her daughter only needed to follow the path she'd drawn. During dinner with Brandon, without Melissa noticing, Donna had snapped a few discreet photos, close angles, smiles, an intimacy that spoke for itself. She kept them like silent trophies, planning to show Andrew when the timing was right. For her, the divorce was just a practical step, a necessary formality to turn Melissa into Mrs. McAllister. She could already picture telling her friends, with pride, that at last her daughter had made the right choice. When Melissa walked into the house everything looked the same, the smell, the pictures on the walls, the blanket folded on the sofa, the keys hanging by the door. But something was off. On the kitchen table sat a white envelope, and on top of it Andrew's wedding ring. No note, no letter. Inside were the divorce papers, already filled out, already signed. Her chest tightened, a mix of guilt and disbelief. She ran through the house calling for him, as if she might still find him in the bedroom, on the porch, anywhere, waiting for an explanation. But no one was there. Andrew was gone, leaving only the end. She called repeatedly. The first calls were declined, then everything went straight to voicemail. She sent short texts, not knowing what to say, then messages that were too long, trying to justify what she couldn't explain even to herself. In one she wrote, "I lost myself for a moment," and hated herself for it. A moment, as if everything had been a quick stumble, when she knew it had been a choice. A choice pushed, yes, but hers. Days later, when Donna heard Andrew had filed for divorce, she almost let a smile slip. She covered it with a rehearsed line about how sorry she was, but she couldn't hide her relief. For her, that was the official green light. Brandon was now a free road, without a plain old husband blocking the story. The process was swift, and within weeks the divorce was final, simple, direct, uncontested. Andrew didn't want anything else, just distance. Donna reminded her daughter this was the time to truly start over with someone on her level, like she'd always said. Melissa, confused and fragile, let herself be swept along again. She accepted Brandon's dinner invitation without really knowing how she felt. She accepted the compliments, the gifts, her mother's approving looks. Before she realized it, they were appearing together in photos, dinners, events. Her face started showing up in society columns on the arm of the heir to one of the state's most influential families. The image was perfect, the newly single woman, rising from the ashes with class, rebuilding her life alongside a rich, handsome, well-known man. It was everything Donna ever wanted. Brandon made it all look easy. He was great at selling ideas, he sold the promise of stability as if it were simple. Melissa went along even though a hollow feeling inside her grew by the week. She remembered Andrew in ordinary gestures, folding clothes, the corner of the bed he used, the way he listened when her thoughts got tangled. With Brandon, everything felt like a performance. He made her laugh, but it was always a quick laugh. She got used to hiding the discomfort, working hard to keep up appearances. After all, everyone said she looked better than ever, everyone except her. A few weeks later she started noticing a pattern in Brandon's conversations. He always dodged delicate topics, never spoke in depth about the family business. Whenever a reporter approached at events, he whispered in her ear and whisked her away. She thought she was overreacting, but the feeling that something was wrong kept growing. Then one random morning the news exploded online. The McAllister name was everywhere. Still in bed, Melissa grabbed her phone, heart racing. The first headline knocked the wind out of her: Brandon McAllister under investigation for tax fraud. She kept scrolling. Money laundering, offshore accounts, the father and brothers involved. All family assets were frozen by court order. Police had raided the properties, and Brandon had been taken in for questioning. She sat up trembling. She called him, out of service. She called her mother, and Donna answered in a panic, glued to the TV. She said it had to be a mistake, but the footage told another story: the McAllister family being escorted into police vans, luxury cars towed away, the glass castle collapsing one piece at a time. Melissa spent the day trying to grasp how everything had fallen apart so fast. The life of luxury evaporated like a bubble. The name that once opened doors now slammed them shut. And her image, once linked to success, started showing up in articles as girlfriend of the investigated heir. The pain of watching everything crumble was huge, but something hurt even more, realizing her mother didn't seem sorry for the choices she'd forced. Donna just looked frustrated for betting on the wrong horse. Brandon had been the centerpiece. With him in jail and the fortune frozen, all that remained was the bitter taste of an irreversible mistake. The triumphant look vanished from Donna's face, replaced by the defeat she'd built herself. And for the first time, Melissa began to question everything she'd swallowed in silence. The scandal was still fresh on the headlines when Donna showed up at Andrew's house. No call, no text, she just appeared, as if urgency and chaos justified barging in. She rang the bell hard, once, then again. When he opened the door her face was already wet. She was openly crying, makeup smudged, hair pulled back any old way, eyes showing sleepless nights. He didn't say a word. He stood there, hand on the knob, waiting for her to speak. Donna took a deep breath, pressed her hands to her chest like she was holding in her own regret, and said she needed to talk. He stepped aside just enough. She walked in. On the couch she tried to stay composed but soon broke down. She said it was all her fault, that she'd manipulated her daughter from the start, that she'd rejected Andrew for being too ordinary and had pushed Brandon instead. She confessed she'd always believed she had the right to decide Melissa's future. She said she thought she was protecting her, giving her a better destiny, but now saw she'd done everything wrong. She spoke of Melissa's empty stare these past days, how her daughter barely spoke, just obeyed, walked around the house as if carrying 100 pounds on her back. And that, deep down, it was Donna's fault. She was there to ask forgiveness, not out of convenience but out of shame. She was sorry for every word, every hint, every time she belittled Andrew in front of Melissa to make her believe he wasn't enough. Andrew listened in silence. The pain was no longer raw, now it was a muted ache, a tender spot he'd learned to protect. Donna's words no longer cut, but they offered no comfort either. When she finished and waited for a reaction, he simply stood up, walked to the shelf, and took down a small box. Inside were photos with Melissa, old notes, memories from a time he thought nothing could go wrong. He handed the box to Donna, no anger in his eyes, just a firm voice. He said he'd kept it thinking it might still matter, but now he saw it was dead weight. He told her she could have it. Maybe it would remind her that some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Donna tried to argue, said people change, that he could give a second chance. But Andrew didn't hesitate. He said he'd spent a long time trying to be accepted, proving his worth to a family that never wanted him around, swallowing hurtful remarks, jokes masked as teasing, judgmental looks, all for love of Melissa. But that love had been pushed off a cliff, and what remained now was a man at peace with his own choice. He said he did forgive, but forgiveness isn't the same as returning. He had restarted his life quietly, far from parties, far from appearances, far from wounded pride, and he was fine that way. Donna understood, truly understood for the first time. She stood, thanked him for listening, and left with the box in her arms. She went home bearing a new burden, telling her daughter she had failed twice, first by forcing the breakup, then by trying to patch what she destroyed. This time there was no plan, no Brandon, no luxury to undo the damage. Melissa was lying on the bed staring at the ceiling. Donna walked in softly, sat on the edge, and told her everything, every detail. She said Andrew had moved on, her voice low, no drama, like someone admitting defeat. Melissa just closed her eyes. No tears fell. Only a long sigh slipped out, as if she finally accepted what she'd lost. There was nothing left to hold on to. The castle was dust, and the only man who ever truly loved her was now just a memory in the box her mother had set on the living room table. The following weeks were a deep dive into everything Melissa had ignored for too long. The penthouse where Brandon took her to dinner no longer existed. The imported car he used to pick her up was seized. His messages vanished. The number stopped working. When police knocked on Donna's door asking about the gifts Brandon had given her daughter, reality hit hard. Those watches, the handbags, even the blue stone necklace she'd proudly worn to a charity event, all were tied to the investigation. Melissa had to hand every item back, as if returning pieces of a character that had never been real. Her image, once linked to elegance and a new romance with an heir, became a joke in social circles. People who rolled out the red carpet weeks earlier now traded mocking messages. She started avoiding going out. She ignored invites, refused visitors. On the rare occasions she went to the market or walked the neighborhood, she felt watched. People's eyes held a mix of pity and judgment, as if everyone knew she traded a real man for a fairy tale, and lost them both. She tried distracting herself with chores, but her mind always returned to the same spot, Andrew's silence, the steadiness in his gaze, the way he handed over the memory box. Nothing was the same anymore. Donna, for the first time, was quiet. She offered no advice, made no plans, suggested no outings. She curled up in her own guilt, spending her days tending a battered garden and overdue bills. Both credit cards were cancelled. The McAllister name she once glorified now meant debt, lawsuits, public shame. Doors shut one after another. Invites disappeared. Calls too. She tried to sell some clothes and old accessories, but no one wanted anything connected to that name. It was as if everything was tainted. The entire family had been wiped from the city's elite, and with them any trace of status Donna thought she'd one day enjoy. With no way out, the two packed their bags and returned to the old house on the outskirts of New Jersey, the one where Melissa grew up, the one Donna always said wasn't good enough. Now, with no choice, they'd sleep in the same small rooms, surrounded by the same walls they'd tried to leave behind. Walking through the front door, Donna tripped on a floor crack that had been there since the 90s. She stopped, looked around, and muttered that it was punishment. Melissa said nothing. She went straight to her room, closed the door, and lay down fully dressed. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared at the ceiling for hours. When sleep came, it was broken and heavy, like sinking and floating at the same time. The days that followed felt repetitive. The morning alarm was replaced by neighbors mowing lawns. Melissa would wake up, eat a little, scroll her phone aimlessly, then lie back down. Her social media was scrubbed clean. She deleted every photo with Brandon, every record of parties and trips. She kept only one picture with Andrew, from an ordinary weekend when they were laughing on the living room floor. That hurt the most, because in that shot there was no luxury, no status, only truth. She tried writing him a letter. She filled almost 2 pages, writing about regret, the blindness that guided her, how much she missed him. When she finished, she tore it all up. She knew he didn't need to hear anything else. He had already heard too much, had been patient beyond reason. If he was at peace now, she had no right to drag him back to the place he'd fought to leave. She tucked the shredded pieces inside an old book and went silent again. One evening Donna was making dinner and asked if she wanted to help. Melissa paused for a few seconds and said she'd rather not touch anything. Donna got the message. It wasn't about food. It was about everything. Their words now were short, to the point, almost bureaucratic. There was a distance between mother and daughter that neither time, nor poverty, nor shame seemed able to shrink. A month later Melissa opened social media without thinking and scrolled until an unexpected photo stopped her. Andrew was smiling. Next to him was a woman, simple, elegant, with an easy expression. They were in a park, wearing casual clothes, sitting on the grass, drinking coffee from thermos cups. Nothing flashy, nothing scandalous, yet it was enough to shatter the fragile balance she'd built. Not out of jealousy, but because she saw he had truly moved on, no bitterness, no resentment, free of the weight she forced herself to carry every day. Melissa closed the app, pushed the phone away, and stared at the ceiling once more. There was nothing to fix, only things to understand, and now she understood. Some choices collect interest over time. Some doors, when they close, aren't locked, they're ripped off. And love, when dismissed, turns into a lesson. A hard one. Final. It repeats in silence for the rest of your life. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.